everybody, and welcome to the Millennial Revolt, an independent political talk show that seeks to bring a different narrative than the stale one we have going on right now in the mainstream media. So today we are going to be talking about President Obama granting clemency to Chelsea Manning and commuting her sentence and how she'll be out in May. Now, there have been mixed reactions on the right as well as the left in establishment circles, but there has been an overwhelming sense of joy, and the work has not been finished yet in alternative media as well as people who have been supportive of Chelsea Manning this whole time. Now, there's so much to talk about, so let's just jump right into it. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about who Chelsea Manning is, and we're going to be talking about what she did first. Now, Chelsea Manning is a former private first class in the U.S. Army, and she is also a whistleblower who leaked 700,000 classified U.S. State Department and military documents. At the time of the leaks and her military court-martial in Fort Meade, Maryland, Manning was known as Bradley Manning. Fort Meade is a military installation and the home of the National Security Agency, which is the NSA. On August 21st, 2012, Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison. She has since been imprisoned in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Now, Chelsea Manning disclosures were made to WikiLeaks, a non-profit whistleblower site. The first of the Manning's leaks shook the world in a video dubbed Collateral Murder, which you can find it on YouTube, and I will also have a link in the description where you can look at it yourself, which documented the slaughter of a dozen unarmed civilians and two Reuters photojournalists. The video was taken from the cockpit of a U.S. Apache helicopter. Next to hit were the Afghan War Diaries, which comprised more than 75,000 U.S. military reports from 2004 to 2010. 3 months later, WikiLeaks and various news agencies released the Iraq War Logs, which was the largest classified military leak in history. The leaks exposed detentions of prisoners and thousands of civilian deaths. The massive trove included about 400,000 U.S. military reports. In November of 2010, WikiLeaks released U.S. diplomatic cables that rocked the U.S. State Department. And in 2011, WikiLeaks released the Gitmo files, which were documented cases of several hundred Guantanamo Bay prisoners. The prison was opened in 2002 and remains open despite its dwindling population. Now, you may be asking, how was Chelsea Manning caught? She was detained and arrested in May of 2010 and officially charged a month later. Investigators were able to hone in on Manning after an informant turned over chat logs to the FBI. The informant was a former hacker who Manning had been communicating with. It was during this instant message exchange that Manning discussed the leaks. Now, prior to her court-martial, Manning was moved to Quantico, Virginia, where she was held in solitary confinement for nearly a year. In March of 2011, Manning's charges were upgraded to include the most serious accusation of aiding an enemy. What she did was basically tell the world that the U.S. government was lying and committing acts of terrorism in Afghanistan, just proving what most people already knew. It was that very same day that the U.S. State Department at the time spokesperson P.J. Crowley criticized the government's treatment of Manning, calling it ridiculous. Crowley would eventually resign. Manning's representation, Chase Strongo, a staff attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union, said the decision could quite literally save Chelsea's life. "We are all better off knowing that Chelsea Manning will walk out of prison a free woman, dedicated to making the world a better place and fighting for justice for so many." Nancy Hollander and Vince Ward, Manning's appellate counselors, said in a joint statement that Manning's disclosed information that served the public interest and never caused harm. Their 35-year sentence, the longest ever handed to a whistleblower, was always excessive. Now, many people thought that they were trying to send a message to any would-be whistleblowers to try to discourage them and all of that, and they were saying that because they couldn't get Edward Snowden, who actually released real damaging information about the NSA and them spying, collecting all of our metadata, and violating our constitutional rights because the NSA is unconstitutional. that they were trying to send a lesson through Chelsea Manning. Now, it's a good thing that she is out, that she is free. She has served her country as a patriot, and I applaud her for all the work that she has done, continuing to keep our government accountable from things that ordinary American citizens would not know. We need whistleblowers because they help keep our government accountable. There are so many instances where we have no idea what's going on with the average American citizens. And years later, we find out about the horrible, despicable things that they were doing behind the scenes and the lies that they were telling the American people through the complicit legacy media, who always seems to be working hand in hand with our governmental officials, our politicians, and always towing the line of the government instead of keeping them honest. That's where the alternative media comes in, always shining a light on what the government and the mainstream media is doing. Now, Paul Ryan, who is currently the Speaker of the House, chimed in and called the decision outrageous, claiming that the leaks put lives at risk. He made a statement saying this is just outrageous. Chelsea Manning's treachery put American lives at risk and exposed some of our nation's most sensitive secrets. President Obama now leaves in place a dangerous precedent that those who compromise our national security won't be held accountable for their crimes. No, people like Paul Ryan would rather our government continue to do unconstitutional things, continue to create war crimes overseas, and not be held accountable, and the American people not know, all under the guise of national security. Now, I am totally sensitive to the fact that sometimes what whistleblowers can leak can put our soldiers in jeopardy, can endanger some assets that we do have overseas. I totally understand that, but at the same time, what they're doing outweighs the risk. If we had actual people in our government who were able to keep these people accountable and hold them accountable for the crimes that they were doing, whether it was our politicians, whether it was governmental officials in certain agencies like the CIA, which is an unconstitutional organization to begin with, whether it was the NSA, if we had people in government who were able to hold these people accountable, we wouldn't need whistleblowers. If we had a correct and responsible media who was able to hold our politicians and do active investigative journalism work to find out what these people were doing, then we wouldn't need whistleblowers. But unfortunately, we're at a time where everyone is so corrupt in positions of power, whether it's in our legacy media, whether it's in our politics, in our governmental agencies, that we need ordinary American citizens who are willing to put their own freedom at risk and possibly spend decades in prison because they feel that they have a duty to keep our country honest, to keep our country from violating our constitutional rights. And I applaud each and every single whistleblower who has the courage of their convictions to do what is right for our country. So this brings up the interesting question, what is Julian Assange going to do? Now, he released a tweet through WikiLeaks saying that if President Obama granted Chelsea Manning clemency, then that he would agree to U.S. extradition despite it being clearly unconstitutional, the government having a case out against him. Julian Assange did nothing wrong. All he did was publish the documents that were given to him. It also begs the question on whether President Obama was doing this for political reasons or he was doing it out of the kindness of his heart. Now, if he was doing it out of the kindness of his heart, that is a great and amazing thing, and I applaud the president for taking up Chelsea Manning's case and giving her clemency and reducing her sentence because 35 years was extremely excessive. Or he was doing this for political reasons, which is extremely cynical. One is because the Democratic Party is in complete shambles right now. They are searching for a leader. They still haven't found their message. As I've said in a previous video, they've been decimated all over the country, so this would get them back in the good graces of many progressives. So it could be that as well, but either way, it is still a great thing that Chelsea Manning is free. She has done an amazing service to our country. She is a patriot, and I applaud her work. I applaud what Edward Snowden has done, and I applaud what Julian Assange continues to do for releasing all of this information that has always been accurate, never anything false. So I'm the Millennial Revolt. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.